me and Dr. Agan were sitting down, it wasn't too long ago, and we're kind of discussing things and discussing how we see chiropractic going and what we're seeing more and more and more of. And we even discussed, even in the last 3 years, chiropractic, the way we treat and the things that we're having to go over with our patients is much different than it was even when we started back in 2015, 2016, right? So the things that we're seeing the most of now is the thoughts that we have in our head on a daily basis are tremendously affecting our body in all types of different ways. Most patients that come into our office, it's not just a pure musculoskeletal issue anymore. Most of the people that come into our office are experiencing a tremendous amount of stress. Now, before, we didn't really view stress as something that could affect the physical body, but we know now that it does. It's massive. Your thoughts are huge when it comes to the way you feel on a daily basis, your energy levels, everything across the board. And just to name a few, what we're seeing the most of is a lot of patients with the stress of, and where's it coming from? All this stress is coming from the internet, all the social medias that we have, good or bad. It's just a lot. We're consuming a lot. The pandemic 3 short years ago was rough on everyone. The political climate on everyone is rough, whether you're one side or the other. It really doesn't matter. Those different stresses and all those things that are going on in our country are causing different issues that we really didn't have before. And so this nervousness, this anxiety, these confident issues, these feeling insecure or feeling like you're less than because you look on the internet and everyone's doing all these cool things and maybe you're not doing them. So then you feel less than, and then depressed. A lot of depression and anxiety within our world nowadays. So what we're seeing is we're seeing this on a grander level here at our office, and it's starting to be more and more and more and more common. So what we want to do with this podcast is that we want to address that. Most of the chiropractors that we listen to as well on the internet talking a lot about musculoskeletal things and health issues. We want to provide a different type of podcast, a podcast that you can come and listen to, and that we can start trying to get our emotions balanced out. And what do I mean by that? Try to get our thoughts to exactly where they need to be. And that way we can be the best we can be. Now, these things can go up and down. I kind of look at it as like a straight line. If you want to be a straight line all day long, then you got to have those emotions in check. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to dive too deep. So, how do you do that? You have the right techniques and the right strategies that will help you from diving too far deep. And really, to be honest, going too far up as well, because sometimes going way up, feeling really good, boom, 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 boom. And then all of a sudden it hits you with a different, all time low. So you want to be
Hmm.
able to have the strategies so you can stay around that line and that good emotional balance. So with this podcast, we're going to be focusing on all those different strategies and all those different emotional techniques so you can feel better about yourself, and then in return, your physical body feels a whole lot better as well.
Yeah, and the biggest thing too, going back to chiropractic when it first started, one of DD and BJ Palmer's big quotes was thoughts, toxins, and traumas, and how the body can't tell the difference between the stress of the three. It all affects it the same. And you're right. I mean, past 3 years, I know that it has opened up my eyes to the power of the mind and really how it can affect the body, and how you're right. I mean, look at the world we're living in. Healthcare is an absolute disaster right now. There is multiple problems that we have, but it all stems down to the core principle of the nervous system. And like you said, with especially the first year, patients starting, and just the population went from working in their workspace to having to go and work from home, and then the stressors of what's going to happen at the end of all this. Patients, and I keep saying patients, but the population losing their jobs for multiple circumstances. And And I think we were all just thrown for a big loop, and we're still in that repetitive cycle of fear, and basically we have exhausted our nervous system. And I've noticed throughout the last 3 years, especially, it's just like there's different waves of everything. Like, even if you don't pay attention to the media or even get on social media, and that's what I did for the longest time, was to avoid all the pressure and noise, but you could feel the energy from the patients and in the different waves. And it was like, it's like this tsunami storm coming through, and you're getting through that next wave. Well, here comes another one. And that's how it's just day after day, that emotional component and how much that affects the body. One thing that I would like to tie in too is how much stress, anything going against the natural ability to do something. So our body's naturally designed to heal. It's naturally designed to thrive in any type of environment, but too much abnormal forces on that will cause that stress response. So the stress response involves the nervous system, which is the brain and spinal cord. And we're starting to see now, and I know with you, Dr. Bryant, like, a lot of the times when somebody's emotionally stressed, their immune system's down. So they're going to be more prone to getting sick, more prone to developing a disease in the body that'll eventually lead to cancer. They're going against their body's natural ability to do what it needs to do. And I think the biggest thing is awareness, creating that awareness. There's so many different health. Basically, here's the best way to do this. Here's the supplement to be taken to do that. Like, there's no core foundation of a simple principle that the society can follow. And if we can really understand the brain and spinal cord are the control centers to your whole body. So for example, if you're in traffic, and we'll use this for an example, if you're in traffic and somebody cuts you off or you're running late, what happens is your natural response, your heart rate speeding up, your eyes dilating, you feeling kind of, what's the word? I'm very agitated. You're on edge, and that
Way
is
too
what
overstimulated.
overstimulated. There you go. So if you're overstimulated, you can't be in a place to provide for your family, to be a good spouse, to be a good father, and to do your job at a high level, because you're in constant survival mode. And that's what you see, especially in our country. It's everywhere. And you see irrational decisions, you see bad financial decisions as well, and you're seeing just off the cuff, abnormal behavior in society. And that's all due because we're all on edge. We're all stressed. We're not able to make conscious decisions, especially about our health, which is the most important thing that we should be thinking about right now. So if we can really look at, yes, like, our whole goal is to, what we've found, going back to it, is musculoskeletal issues is what brings in 90% of the patients that come into our office. But what Dr. Bryant was mentioning earlier is how much we are seeing the correlation between emotional stress and what's going on in people's lives, and how that affects the body in certain areas of tension. I've had it where I'm examining a patient and they're face down, and I'm asking them about their family, their spouse, and their kids. And we get to their coworker that they're talking about, and their whole lower back tenses up. So there is such a strong connection to that. And if we can, I think, again, create awareness and give you the tools to basically overcome these challenges and to make yourself healthy, because physical, chemical, or emotional stress to the body can't tell the difference. But however, that emotional, mental stress is the driving force to every other aspect in your life. It is so important that you understand that you can control that. And I think as we, go on, I'm excited, Dr. Bryant. We got a lot of stuff coming, and a lot of homework to do on our ends to reinforce some of these topics. But we're going to talk about a lot of really cool stories, and we wouldn't be this passionate about it if we didn't know that we saw it with our own eyes in our practice and our own lives. But really pumped to get going, man.
Absolutely, yeah, and this is stuff that we both had to deal with in our own lives as well. I know, just a personal story. A year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, got sick. It came out of nowhere. I had kidney failure. Got down to about 10% of my kidney function, which was really rough, real scary time. And the one of the toughest things was actually when it was all said and done and I was getting better, my thoughts and my anxiety towards what had just happened to me would actually make me feel sick. So it all started off with this kidney failure. It actually started off with a bunch of nausea type issues. And so anytime that I would have that afterwards, I would have so much anxiety and then almost have a panic attack to the point to where I felt as sick as I was before, but I actually wasn't sick. And so at that point in time, I realized, these thoughts are very powerful on what's happening in your present life right then. At that point, when I was having those thoughts, I was not sick. Everything was fine, but I was so terrified of going back into that type of situation that I would almost give myself a panic attack, which then would make me nauseous, and then I would relive everything. And that's what happens when people, and especially we've had in our world, everyone has all these, not all these. In our world, we have so many traumatic events with so many people, and all these unfortunate things that happen, and that creates more stress and more stress. So what we want to do on this podcast is, much like I had to do at that point, start learning some techniques and strategies. That way we can get your emotional being back to where it should. That way you don't feel that way, because, and I know a lot of people, and I've been there too, you don't feel like there's really much of a way to better yourself. You kind of feel like, I'm in this little rut. That's where it's at, and there's really not much I can do. But as we know, with working patients and working with ourselves, there is a way. There is a way to start bringing yourself back to where you once were. It is just a little bit of a process to get you back where you need to be. So with this podcast, it's going to be a little bit different than most chiropractic podcasts maybe you listen to, or most chiropractors. We're probably not going to be harping on tendonitis and things like that. We're going to be focusing on the mind and how the mind affects the body, because it's extremely important. And for so many years, we put it aside. And some people might say, "Oh no, we don't." We have the generations before us. It really wasn't even acceptable to really talk about your feelings, or how things were, your thoughts, and how everything was going with you in your day. You just were tough, go to work, you do your thing, and then that's it. But you know what? We know now that these thoughts and these stressful things, how much of an impact they have on our lives. So we have to talk about it, because
Mhm.
talking about it is much more, and feeling better is much more important than looking tough, or whatever anybody thinks that we should be by not talking about our feelings.
I guess, like you said, you can address a cause or you can bury it until it festers into something else. And so, I think you're right. I mean, we're in a world where there's so much pressure and noise. We're bombarded with information. Then there's also the stress of the normal relationships in life, your spouse, your kids, your coworkers. These are all basically normal stressors thrown at us that we just got to keep in balance and keep in check. I think the number one thing too is, if we're having this many thoughts a day, and I mean, the average human being, around 30,000 thoughts a day, duplicated multiple times, around 80 to 90,000 thoughts your brain's trying to process and calibrate. You think every sight, sound, and thing you've ever experienced in your life in one area, trying to get calibrated and spit out the right times. It's hard to not have your mind drift. But if we can train and help you, give you the tools to stay in the present moment, then you're not allowed, your body won't be able to be in the past or in the future when you're in that present moment. And sometimes you made the great point of, and I've been there before too, that helpless feeling, kind of like you need that little boost. You need that little, breath of fresh air, that you're going to be okay, that you're going to be able to figure this out. Because I think that's what happens. The thoughts are creating disease, and then we're put down a rabbit hole of this is just how my body is. And I can't stress this enough. And really, until you go through something where you learn to appreciate the life we have. I mean, we got one shot at this. And so, and I think that's why we're so driven to help. And if we can get multiple people to live at a higher level and be happier with where they're at in their life, then man, that's what a healthcare provider is supposed to do. And we're striving to do that, man. I'm pumped to do this journey with you.
Absolutely. We're just trying to knock down some walls. There's so many, as us humans, and day-to-day life, we got a lot of walls in front of us, and we have a lot of things, and it's talked about a lot how to physically do things to help yourself out, stretching, exercising, all those different things. But exercising your mind and learning new things to not only help out your mind, but help out your physical body by the way that you think. That, I mean, it's extremely important, and that's what we're all about. And basically what we want to do with this podcast, this isn't something that at school we learned about all the time. So this is a journey. We've been on this journey for 7 to 10 years, learning on our own how to think. And so this podcast is not only going to be us telling you the things that we've learned, but also what we're continuing to learn. As time changes, more things are going on, and we have to adapt. So as we're doing research with the expertise that we have, we're going to give you what we think is best based on the research that we're doing. And we're going to use our expertise in health and wellness to try to easily communicate it to you. That way you can get better as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And really just to be that resource, and we're going to keep it simple with this, because again, there's so many different avenues. But the truth is the truth, and how the body works. And you can, I think it's that experience we've had in the office and going through one of the craziest times this world's ever seen. And chiropractic stayed strong, man. I mean, that shows you how truthful this profession is, and so important to keep in the individual's lives for wellness. But then again, it goes deeper for us, because we're always learning. We're living and learning as physicians. This is an art. And so this has worked. We've seen it work. We've evaluated patients. We asked certain questions. So along the lines, we've done kind of a research study with all this, and we've seen positive outcomes, and we're going to give more tools of the basic principles of the nervous system and where stress really comes from and how it can reside in the body, and it can be healed.